Previously on the Challenge All-Stars. I thought Derek's shirt was comic relief. It wasn't. I took my second cousin to the prom. We were such moms, and I was powerful as fuck! Hello, other people. Thanks for tuning in to DVR Czar, the channel where TV rules all. And welcome to the Recap Corner! Today, I'll be talking about Season 2, Episode 3 of The Challenge All-Stars, which aired on Thanksgiving. I hope everyone who observed the holiday last week had a happy time and that you all got to eat whichever part of the turkey you prefer. Or if you're like me and don't care for turkey, then I hope you had your fill of your favorite side dish. Mine's the rolls. As a result of the holiday, I didn't get as much time to pore over the episode as I usually do, so my goal this week is brevity. Brevity, when your long-winded nature collides with going to Tennessee to visit your boyfriend's family. Brevity. The cast rides the collective high of officially not being the first people eliminated. With his newly acquired life shield, Nehemiah hopes that if he can't use it to help himself, then it can benefit one of his allies, many of whom he assumes will be early targets. He doesn't elaborate on who these allies are, but we see him hugging Darrell, Ayanna, and Kendall as he says it. So I'm gonna guess that those are some of the people he's referring to. If so, does that mean Darrell is going to be targeted early? Someone protect him! And I know we're going to see later in the episode that maybe the reason people aren't protecting Darrell might be because he's not protecting them either. But I don't care! Let hypocrisy reign! As for Ayanna, the other life shield holder, we don't hear from her directly, but we do hear from Sophia, who feels lucky to be appearing with Ayanna, someone she considers a friend, in her first season in 16 years. In retrospect, this is an extremely depressing confessional. But we'll get there. The next day, the cast enjoys some outdoor time. Derek gets a trim, and Brad appears to drink straight from a coconut. A decision I don't really get since this isn't Survivor or The Island, thankfully. But I respect his decision nonetheless, especially because from what I understand, it's kind of difficult to open a coconut. Elsewhere, Tina and Katie brainstorm how to best fuck with the guys more, which immediately makes me wonder what sort of fuckery has already happened that didn't make air. Eventually, they land on Tina giving Ryan a pair of swim trunks that dissolve in water. I'm pretty sure this exact pair, which is literally the first thing that comes up if you Google dissolving bathing suit. Overall, it's a fine prank. It doesn't get a huge reaction from Ryan, but he's amused, as is everyone else. Bringing props and costumes is classic old school challenge behavior, so the scene definitely made me nostalgic. In an alternate scenario, though, one where much of the cast doesn't have decades-long relationships with each other, I think giving an unsuspecting person a bathing suit that's going to immediately dissolve, thereby exposing them, would play a lot differently. But because everyone involved, the prankers, the prankee, and all the bystanders have a good time with it, I do too. Post-prank, we see a more sentimental scene. Jody and Jasmine discuss how it feels to return to the challenge so many years later. For Jody, it's a chance to prove to people that she's still the competitive powerhouse she once was. While discussing her dominant performance on The Duel, the last time she appeared on a challenge, Jody says, "I could have just left it there." And I know I'm nitpicking, but as far as I understand it, it's not that Jody made the choice to retire Big T style. She just never got cast again after winning, like what seems to be currently happening to Jenny from Total Madness. Either way, the point is, Jody's back and I'm damn glad because MTV never should have dropped her in the first place. Okay, so what happens next defines most of the rest of the episode, which is unfortunate because not only is it a really sad fight that fractures a real-life friendship, but I also feel like we never get the full story of what exactly happened. The challenge being poorly edited? No way! We join the conflict in medias res. Sophia is unhappy with the way Ayanna braided her hair. Ayanna's unhappy with Sophia's unhappy reaction. It's unclear how the situation came to be because both women tell different versions of how it started. Sophia says that Ayanna offered to braid her hair, but was unwilling to hear any of Sophia's input. As a result, she chose a style that upset Sophia because it triggered painful memories of the bullying she endured when she first arrived in the United States from Haiti. That's the first version, Sophia's version. In Ayanna's version, Sophia asked for her hair to be braided, knowing that she would feel triggered by it, and because of that, Ayanna thinks Sophia intentionally set her up. But set her up for what? A huge amount of the episode's storyline hinges on this conflict, and yet it's presented so opaquely, so incompletely, that it's impossible to tell what actually caused said conflict. It's not unusual for a modern challenge season to rush through interpersonal segments in favor of more time for needless explosions and pyrotechnics displays. But given the nature of the disagreement, combined with the well-documented discrimination Black people in America face because of their hair, and Viacom CBS's history of self-serving, performatively toothless activism, it kind of seems like the episode just doesn't want to deal with what happened. And as a result, we don't even get to fully know what happened. Nor do we get the moment of reflection and further discussion that the exchange deserves. Why does Ayanna, who spent most of last episode working to uplift and empower Leah, react so oppositely towards Sophia in her own moment of need? Is it because Ayanna views Sophia's trauma as an attack against her? I think the closest thing to an answer comes when Ayanna says this to Sophia.
I don't want you going up there around all them people looking a hot mess, crying and all of this. That is fucked up.
But I'm still just guessing. When the transition music starts playing us into the next scene, all we know for sure is that Sophia's crying and Ayanna's using a fork like this.
We need it. We push it together.
Yeah.
Which is a decisively annoyed way of eating and the thing that will now forever play in my head when someone irritates me. Shaky cam footage of the cast slow motion walking means it's time for the season's second mission. We arrive at a really beautiful location. A large pyramid is next to a cenote, which is a type of groundwater-filled sinkhole specific to Mexico's Yucatan Peninsula. Also, there are 4 puzzle boards built into the side of the pyramid. TJ tells the cast to split themselves into 2 teams of 11. They end up pretty lopsided, with most of the powerhouse physical players on the black team and most of the smaller competitors, which for some reason has recently started to also mean smarter competitors, on the green team. Each team needs to nominate 2 captains, one man and one woman. Winning team captains will earn safety along with the ability to nominate 4 people for elimination, 2 of whom will compete in the arena against the losing team captains. This is the first time we're seeing the format for team missions, and it's pretty much best case scenario. I like the use of team representatives. I like that they're chosen before the mission is played. I especially like that the losing reps are automatically sent into elimination. And if one team is crazy overpowered, at least it's only for an episode. Emerald Cell made an already terrible season even worse. Overall, it's not too different from how things were formatted last season, but I think the tweaks that have been made are all for the better. Darrell and Tina volunteer to captain the black team because due to the player distribution, they think they're likely to win. On the green team, Ryan volunteers because otherwise the men were all going to pick numbers between 1 and 10 and let fate decide, which he thinks is silly. Immediately after, to determine their own captain, the women all pick numbers between 1 and 10 and let fate decide. It selects Ayana, which is sort of like when your Magic 8 Ball says ask again later, because even if green team loses, her life shield will still ensure her safety. Also, I think the real reason Ryan volunteered is probably because he knew if he didn't win safety, then he'd likely be nominated and voted into elimination anyway. But we'll go with his explanation because it's way funnier when you pair it with how the women chose their captain. The mission is called Around the Block. 2 at a time, members from both teams run a short distance to the first group of 11 puzzle pieces. They collect what they can, bring them back to the pyramid, then a different 2 people do the same thing. Once all the pieces are collected, everyone works together to solve the puzzle on the pyramid's lower level. The next set of 11 pieces are found in the cenote. Teams use the same 2 at a time rules to again collect all their pieces, then everyone assembles the pyramid's upper level puzzle. First team to complete both puzzles then pull a lever at the top of the pyramid wins. It's at this point that the episode slowly starts to become a portrait of Ayana. She takes her role as green team captain very seriously, not letting anyone else speak during their pre-mission strategy session.
Do not bicker with anybody trying to unpack why that person is wrong. We know that. We know. Excuse me. We're doing exactly what will get us to be losing, which means one of you will go home today.
But the problem is, from what we see of her speech, she doesn't offer any actual strategy, just platitudes about getting along. Also, that moment of Ayana rejecting Janae's contribution, in my opinion, lends credence to Sophia's version of events regarding their earlier disagreement. Conversely, Tina uses her role as captain to tell the black team exactly what they should do.
After everybody goes, I want the girls to step back and let the boys go in teams. Just as long as you go once, I want the boys to start getting all the bigger pieces.
I sort of feel like I'm betraying the idea of girl power and that episode of Parks and Rec where April and Leslie move the fridge, which is one of my late series favorites, by saying this, but I think Tina suggests the exact right strategy. Overall, I like the mission. It looks hard, mostly because of the heat. I mean, the cast is visibly sweating before the thing even starts, and they look absolutely exhausted throughout it. There were several moments when I thought we were about to witness the All-Stars rendition of that reward challenge from Survivor Korong, where Caleb almost died of heat stroke. There's also a whole section in the middle that's inexplicably set to the Six Flags theme song. I don't really understand the point of the Longhorn skulls on the puzzle pieces, though. Like, they don't form any type of helpful patterns, which makes me think, are these even puzzles? Or are they sideways Tetris? There's also a decent attempt by the editors to make the segment suspenseful despite the lopsided teams. We hear several confessionals from different members of the black team about how chaotic their group is. And Darrell tries to convince us that there are too many loudmouth personalities for them to all communicate effectively, which can cost teams a win. It happens on Drag Race fairly often. This time, though, all the loudmouths come together to listen to the loudest mouth, which is Tina's. Not only does she successfully corral the team, but her brash leadership style also leads to this funny Jasmine confessional.
Did I used to be like her back in the day? No, because Jesus Christ, I should have smacked the shit out of myself. I would never want to be my friend if I was like that. Oh, God.
The green team does employ some clever strategy when Jody pushes all their puzzle pieces to the edge of the cenote, so no one else has to swim as far. But it isn't nearly enough to overcome the black team's brute strength and superior planning. They win easily, which grants Darrell and Tina safety and sends Ryan and Ayanna into elimination. Like I mentioned earlier, this activates Ayanna's life shield, so the green team has to choose a different woman to join Ryan in the arena. Here's what happens.
Look, I saved myself. Let's take it off of everybody else. I'll choose who goes in. Sophia, you go into elimination. It's a gift.
Holy shit! In my opinion, this is the most iconic moment the All-Stars spinoff has produced so far. Made even more iconic when viewed in context with the second most iconic moment, also courtesy of Ayanna. Last episode, she made the entire cast cry after her display of friendship and support in the arena, and now they're calling her an asshole. Or at least Katie is.
What was once like this powerful and admirable woman is turning into an asshole.
What a character arc! And all in less than 2 episodes. Well, I'm disappointed that Sophia's season got spitefully tanked because Ayanna was mad at her. I'm also callously excited that it happened because, man, that was good TV. One of the biggest complaints about modern main challenge seasons is that too many fights seem fake. Like premeditated ploys for screen time. But the rift that forms between Ayanna and Sophia feels so real, it's practically palpable. Not only does Ayanna take it upon herself to send Sophia into elimination, but she also makes sure Sophia knows that it was solely her decision. Because there's $500,000 at stake, even if people are unhappy with Ayanna's steamroll, no one speaks up about it. And the fact that Ayanna frames her decision as a gift to Sophia is the best part of all, partly because it leads to another prime Jasmine confessional.
You're not giving that girl a fucking gift. A gift is a fucking croissant or a spa gift card. It's not a goddamn gift.
And partly because there's no more interesting villain than one who thinks they're the hero as intensely as Ayanna does. Will I be rooting for her from this point forward? Probably not. But do I want her to remain in the game? Absolutely. This whole part of the episode is basically a Tina-induced whirlwind, and the audience is just strapped in for the ride alongside Darrell. It starts with him promising his 3 roommates, MJ, Kahutta, and Janae, that he'll look out for them while deliberating with Tina. And it ends with all 3 of them being nominated for elimination. What happened? Darrell's initial plan is to nominate Steve for one of the same reasons Derek and Jody nominated him last episode. poking fun at Derek's outfit. No, it's because he has prior relationships with the least amount of cast members. For some reason, Tina immediately vetoes this. It's implied that she doesn't want Steve to have to be nominated twice in a row, but I'm wondering if there are alliances we're not seeing. Last episode, when he was nominated, most of the house voted to save him, and during the season premiere, he and Tina almost won the mission while competing as a duo. Does Tina want to keep Steve around because she's anticipating more partner work and hopes to pair with him again? Either way, she wants to randomly pick 4 people to nominate, which Darrell immediately vetoes, and their deliberation descends into a back and forth of picking one person they want to save. Because both agree not to target anyone who won the mission with them, there aren't a lot of people to choose from, and it's quickly revealed that the 4 nominees are MJ, Kahada, Janae, and Jody. There's a brief moment where Tech is nominated instead of Kahada, but Nehemiah uses his life shield as an apology for eliminating him last season, and Kahada is chosen to be his replacement. Typically, Darrell is a quiet, well-liked player who relies in part on a straight-up social game, so this was an unusually sloppy move for him, but I also think Darrell is one of the most passive players, so it's not that surprising that Tina easily bulldozed all his plans just by being herself. Jody's nomination spurs an overview of her former rivalry with Tina, which contributed to a very memorable Inferno 2 fight during which Jody held her own with no backup against a relentless Veronica, Rachel, and Tina trio for what seemed like hours. I hope this reignition of their rivalry allows Jody to show people that, contrary to popular belief, aka revisionist history, even if Jody's personality wasn't always as fiery as her castmates, she was actually just as big a mess as everyone else from that challenge era. The strange thing about this segment is that we don't see any aftermath between Darrell and his 3 roommates. MJ says he's confused in a confessional, but that's it. Earlier, we hear him express concern about Tina's unpredictability, which makes me wonder if they all just blame Tina, and only Tina, for their nomination. We know Jody does. If that is the case, then it seems like this cast views Tina as having a lot of power, all for being a slightly less abrasive version of Carrie from King of Queens. The season's second selection is less heated than its first, which could be a positive or a negative depending on what you like in your reality competition shows. Ryan asks to compete against Kahada because they're close in size. Sophia asks to compete against Jody so she can either beat the best or lose to her, and basically everyone honors their wishes. The only people who vote against the majority are Tyler, but only halfway, and Derek. In her speech, Sophia specifically says that she wants to know if she can catch up to Jody, which is unfreaking canny given the speed-based nature of the elimination they're about to compete in. Speaking of, this was a pretty fantastic challenge episode until we get to the elimination. But I'll start with the things I did like about it. Darrell wears this hat, and Ayanna wears a freaking tiara to watch her friend that she backstabbed get eliminated. And that's it. TJ explains the elimination as tic-tac-toe, but cooler. A large tic-tac-toe board with circular depressions in each space sits at one end of the arena. At the other end, there are 2 tables, one for each competitor. Both tables hold 5 balls. Players pick up a ball, run it to the board, place it wherever they want, then run back to their table and repeat the process. First person to win 2 games wins the elimination. At this point, you might be wondering just what is it that makes this cooler than regular 2D X's and O's tic-tac-toe? The answer is that prior to each round, all the balls are set on fire. Sick! Fire sick! I'd love to know which challenge production designer is pushing for all these explosions and all this lighting equipment on fire. Even more than that, I'd like to grab their shoulders and just start shaking. I hated it when they made Corey and Nelson play soccer in the Balls of Fire elimination, and I hated this elimination called Fireball just as much. I did like that it wasn't a size-based game, but anything lit on fire that doesn't need to be is, at this point, a deal breaker. Even the graphics they use to show what 3 in a row looks like are on fire.
Shut it down. Deal breaker.
The men's heat plays without upset. Kahada is faster than Ryan and also has a smart strategy that ensures he'll have multiple ways to win. It also helps that in their final round, Ryan puts his ball in the wrong place, thus handing Kahada an even easier overall victory than it was already going to be. Like almost all of these cast members, Ryan was around during the challenge eras I'm most nostalgic for, so I am sad to see him leave, and even if he probably doesn't have a great chance of winning a final, I'd like to see him invited back for more All-Stars seasons. He gives good confessionals and is always a contributor to the having fun at the house scenes, which for me are just as important to the series' fabric as missions and eliminations are. Still, even if I wasn't ready for Ryan to leave, I really wasn't ready for Kahada to leave. So the outcome, though a downer, is what I'd hoped for. The segment's most exciting moment comes at the beginning of the women's heat. Not only does Sophia surprise everyone by being a fast runner, but Jody also fumbles her first ball, which was really reminiscent of her elimination loss during Inferno 2, when she just sort of crumbled under pressure. Those few seconds when I think Sophia might pull off an enormous upset are pretty thrilling. But then Jody quickly recovers, and then Sophia makes the same mistake as Ryan, which hands Jody her first elimination win. Full disclosure, because she was so athletically dominant in her 3 prior seasons, this was also only her second ever elimination. I feel similarly about Sophia's loss as I did about Ryan's. I didn't want her to go home now, but for me, Jody is an indispensable cast member, especially now that her old rivalry with Tina is flaring up. It's also unfortunate that both heats are determined by someone making a mental mistake, but that's probably how a lot of games of regular not cool tic-tac-toe are won too. And that's the episode. On the way out of the arena, Tech warns us to prepare for the rest of the season.
It's even gonna get more faster and more furious and more fun and more sun.
That's my favorite movie in the franchise. Survivor does this thing in its editing where nature footage or a shot of an animal might be used to imply something about the contestant who's shown immediately before or after. During this All-Stars episode, we see a butterfly right after Jody discusses what it means to reappear on the challenge, and right before the beginning of the Ayanna-Sophia conflict. I can't decide if I think the butterfly represents Jody's emergence from the cocoon that is her 15-year absence from the show, or if it represents Sophia's metamorphosis into someone who remains positive despite the hardships she's endured. Or is it totally meaningless, and I'm asking for too much visual storytelling from a show that can, at times, barely manage to tell a coherent narrative with words. When choosing team captains ahead of the mission, Derek argues that he's already paid his dues and therefore shouldn't have to be a captain. But the only requirement for being cast on All Stars is that you've appeared on a challenge before. So, hasn't everyone paid their dues? And if we're talking about All Stars specific dues, guess who's appeared on both seasons but has yet to compete in Elimination? Okay, there are actually a few people who fit that description, but Derek is one of them. One of my favorite parts of the mission is these long gloves that only Steve appears to wear. At first, I assumed he was using them to protect his hand model hands, but then toward the end of the mission, they're gone. Unfortunately, I think this is one mystery that's going to go unsolved. I've noticed that via her confessionals about yachts, croissants, and spa days, Jasmine is slowly revealing herself to live a very luxe life, which I love for her. Even if she was eliminated early, I think Sophia's exit is spirited enough to get her recast. First, she says these parting words to Ayanna.
Girl, I don't know what happened. If you believe you gave me a gift, fine, you gave me a gift. No, fuck you, man. No.
Then later in her final confessional, she says she was born and forged in the elimination, which is a great last line. But my favorite moments of the episode all come from Kahada, who proves multiple times that he's the funniest person in the cast.
Darrell's plan is to nominate Steve, which is great for me because I'm not Steve, I'm Kahada. So anything keeping Kahada out of the elimination.
What are we gonna call him? The carpenter? Getting ready to carve him up some?
It's gonna be
Mountain Man?
Mountain Man Massacre.
I don't need something with a C. I feel like we need a Kahada the carve cutting.
Well, I'll tell you, you boys really know how to pump a man up.
I haven't played tic-tac-toe probably since the World Championships in Moscow, 92. So it's been a while.
Give the man a microphone and a brick wall. That was supposed to be a Seinfeld impression. And there you have it. All my thoughts about the third episode of the second season of the Challenge All-Stars that I could figure out how to convey coherently. Want more challenge recaps? Then come back next Wednesday. Thanks for watching. Bye! Hanukkah, oh Hanukkah, come light the menorah. Let's have a party, we'll all dance the hora. Gather round the table, we'll give you a treat. Dreidels for spinning and latkes to eat.